Ladies, gentlemen, noobs, and OGs, welcome back to the channel. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. We got a lot to talk about. This is all pretty urgent, critical info, and the reason I want you to know it is because I want you to know what I think is going on, what I think is going to happen, and what the charts are telling me. The first thing that we're going to look at is right in front of us. This is the Bitcoin weekly chart, and what we're seeing on this weekly chart is something I've been talking about on Twitter for, I don't know, a while, maybe about a week now. And basically what it is a red 9 is flashing on the TD sequential. You'll see that the candle is green because it means this is a buy signal. When we go back down, we saw a green 9 back here. Following that, we saw these candles turned red, meaning that the candles were very overextended in a sell signal. It ended up reversing, resetting the TD sequential as we went all the way up to these all-time highs. Now we're seeing a complete shift. We're seeing a red 9. The red 9 is a buy signal. We could have some more downside down to around 27K and then do the same thing, reverse, and see a bunch of bright green candles showing us a trend reversal that takes us all the way back up. Keep it in mind, these things are just trading indicators. These indicators come through from the chart when it's showing you that the sell-off has gone way too long according to the price history and the strength of the asset. So right now, this indicator is telling us that at these prices, Bitcoin is a buy. And a lot of people follow this. You rarely ever see a red 9 on the Bitcoin weekly chart. So seeing this red 9 giving us a buy signal right now during a continuation is basically telling us that the indicator is saying that this is the time to buy because it is predicting in the coming weeks or in the next month that this trend is going to reverse and go to the upside. That's what we're seeing here. Let's keep an eye on it. We need to watch it, but this is really bullish. This candle closes in 3 days. So the key is going to be to see if it closes with a red 9, and basically the price has to stay below 40,500 for that to happen. If we cross 40,500, it'll turn into a green 1, which is also bullish because that's telling us that the uptrend has already begun. But seeing it coast for another few days and then close with this red 9 is very, very bullish. A lot of people will be talking about it next week if that happens. So keep it in mind. I mentioned this to you when the price was at around 31, 32,000, and we have come all the way back up now to 36,000. So quite interesting what we're seeing. I think that this is going to be a very key indicator for the coming weeks. So keep it in mind. Next thing I want to show you is the symmetrical triangles. So we're going to go over to the 4-hour chart. We're going to turn off the TD sequential and the moving averages, and we are going to look at our symmetrical triangles. So we're going to start off with the first symmetrical triangle we were looking at. This was the original one. All right. Then we saw this one. Now we are seeing a much larger one. Now, what's basically happening is the reason these are getting extended is because we're still putting in the same pattern. We're putting in lower highs and we're putting in higher lows. As this continues to happen, you're still in the same continuation pattern. So that means that we have not broken bullish yet. Even though we had a bullish bounce, that bounce was right at the base of where we're putting this new triangle. In fact, we went below even where this trend line is now, and we hit resistance at the bottom of the triangle. That's not a great sign. Keep in mind, this all happened on the heels of the news from El Salvador. So we're going to get into El Salvador very soon and talk about that. Now, pretty much what I see here as being the most likely scenario is that we continue trading in this range. We continue trading anywhere between 33,000 and about 38,000. And we trade in that range, and then we see what happens at the end as we reach June 18th, 19th. So towards the end of this month, the next 10, 12 days. If that continues to happen, then you're going to expect the next move to happen around June 20th to June 21st. And if that next move is a bearish move, then we are possibly talking about breaking below 30,000 and hitting around 27K. And I'll tell you where I get 27K right now. We're going to switch onto the log chart. We're going to switch over to the daily, and we are going to turn on our regression lines. Now, our regression lines on the log chart give us some very key price indicators. We're going to get rid of the symmetrical triangle. We're going to take a look at what we're seeing. We're basically seeing that we dipped below this regression line. Let me zoom in so you can see this better. So we dipped below this regression line, we wicked above it, and we got support. That's what we were expecting. We talked about this when the price was in the $36,000 range at one point. When we dropped now and we saw that we got support and we got bought up from this is a very good sign. It is showing us that this chart is basically holding true as far as regression. The issue is that by January the 21st, 22nd, we're going to reach this area here where we are basically reaching the base of this regression line because the regression line keeps moving up. Now, if that happens and we fall bearish, we need a new area to look at, and that's going to be this bottom channel. You'll notice that this bottom channel bottoms out at right around 27,000 by June 21st. We also can turn on our long-term fib. When we look at our long-term Fibonacci retracement, what do you know? The golden pocket is right at around 27,000. So all these indicators are showing us that if we have a price drop, we're going to expect a bounce at around 27,000 if this continuation pattern completes to the downside. So keep that in mind. For me, that's a great target for buying. I'm going to be putting in buy orders at around 28,000, 28,500, and 27,500. I may not go below that, even though the possibility exists that we trade in this golden pocket if we drop there, which could be as low as 25. But I have a feeling if the price starts dropping to around 25, 26,000, it's going to get bought up very quickly. I may not have a chance to buy on spot, so I'm going to have to plan how I want my orders, but that's the next buy zone I'm looking at in case we have a drop out of this and the continuation pattern completes to the downside, as the continuation patterns like this normally do. It's still a descending wedge, so it could very well trade to the downside. So keep that in mind. Have your downside targets ready. Have your risk management ready. If you plan on accumulating, that may be a good place to do it. I can't guarantee that, but that's what I'm looking at, and that's likely where I'll be looking to buy more. Okay, we're now going to go into El Salvador. All right, so let's switch back to our normal chart. We'll get rid of the fib. Okay, and we're going to put in our symmetrical triangle here. We're also going to switch over to the hourly so we can come back and take a look at price movement as we're watching this. As we're going live in this video, we'll end here. Okay, so when we talk about El Salvador, basically there's a few things that you really need to know about El Salvador, all right? I had found an article on El Salvador. Let me see if I can pull that back up. All right, so in this article, basically what we were looking at are some key things. All right, so this says in a world's first, El Salvador makes Bitcoin its legal tender. I'm sure you guys are all aware of that. The first thing that we really need to keep an eye on this is that it got passed by a vote that was done by the lawmakers. So it's actually approved as a legal currency. That means no capital gains tax. That means that people in El Salvador are going to be able to use Bitcoin just like they can use the US dollar as the infrastructure gets built out and places that want to accept it, accept it. It also means that the government will be accepting Bitcoin for tax payments, for anything like that. So indirectly, the government is going to be accumulating Bitcoin because they are going to be receiving it. So whether or not they sell it immediately, we don't know, but they did say that it'll be used as legal tender beginning in 90 days. The exchange rate will be set by the market, meaning that whatever the dollar exchange rate is in the market, it'll be the same there. We also see here that they said the government and central bank do not currently hold any Bitcoin. If you're going to adopt Bitcoin, it makes sense that your government and central bank are going to start accumulating it. So they're saying that they don't own it yet, but they are likely going to start buying it. That's what I see here as being something that you read between the lines. They are adopting it. Adopting it means you want to have a reserve. They are likely going to start creating that reserve. So keep that in mind. That could send the price up rapidly because we don't know exactly how much the government of El Salvador plans to buy, and we don't know how much other governments and central banks may start accumulating in the background if they have plans to approve it as well. So keep it in mind. This is very interesting because you could see a lot of other governments wanting to follow suit. So keep it in mind. Very, very interesting stuff. We go down here. We also see 70% of the people in El Salvador lack access to traditional financial services. This is very important because a lot of the people in El Salvador not having access to financial services puts them at a disadvantage to the rest of the world. So countries that do lack traditional financial services are going to see the value in using Bitcoin just like El Salvador does. When you start having access to these financial services, it gives your people a much better method to maintain their purchasing power and to take loans and to do things of that nature that we might see happening very aggressively in the coming years of Bitcoin. So keep it in mind. El Salvador, I think, is setting a standard now, and as they start being used as a proof of concept and start to see their economies benefit from this, there's going to be much greater cause for other countries to do the same thing. All right. We also see that, hang on, let me look this up real quick. Remittance. Okay, so one of the big use cases for Bitcoin is to help Salvadorians living abroad send remittances back home. While saying the US dollar will also continue as legal tender, it says El Salvador does not have its own currency. So what is this basically saying? It's saying that when people overseas want to send money back to El Salvador, they're doing it in US dollar, and they have to do it through like third parties. And when they do that, those third parties charge them fees. So they end up paying a lot in fees, and they end up having to wait 3 to 5 days, maybe a week for that money to get transferred back to their country. Now you can use Bitcoin, save a ton on fees, and you don't even have to worry about paying tax on it once it's received in El Salvador. So that is a much, much better way to send money and not have to wait for these third parties and pay them insane fees that you won't have to pay when you're using Bitcoin. Now, granted, if you're sending money from the United States to El Salvador, yes, you would have to pay your capital gains tax when you transfer or sell. That's normal. But as you start seeing other countries adopt the same thing, and let's say another country like somewhere in Europe or something, or who knows where, let's say they do the same thing as El Salvador. Well, then what you might see, if that country has a much more stable economy, you might see people migrating there so that they can work and send money back home in Bitcoin and not have to pay any tax on it, right? If you don't have to pay in the source country and in the receiving country, Bitcoin just insanely explodes in value to the people in El Salvador. And I think we're going to start seeing that happening. As more countries in Central America start to adopt Bitcoin, you're going to start seeing people transferring money between those Central American currencies in Bitcoin. Another very interesting thing we saw here was at the bottom of this, financial regulators and policymakers warn Bitcoin facilitates money laundering and other illicit uses. Well, they, in El Salvador, brushed off the fears, saying criminals already use US dollars and other assets to launder money. The problem is not the dollar, it's the criminals. People understand this, and they don't fall for all the FUD. So the people who really know Bitcoin's value understand that the US dollar has so much more money laundering and criminal and illicit use than Bitcoin does. And eventually you start to see Bitcoin as a method where you can have accountability because everything is recorded on a public ledger. So it is a much better way to transfer money internationally than the US dollar is. It's just a fact. New technology has brought in much, much more safety into this space, and we're going to start seeing the ramifications of that. So keep it all in mind. What's happening in El Salvador is very, very important to Bitcoin because it is setting the stage. It is a proof of concept, and as you start seeing a proof of concept succeed, that's when you start seeing people wanting to get in on the action. So I think that's going to happen, and I think it's going to happen big time. All right, now the next thing we're going to talk about is net flow. One big thing that we saw here, let's switch over to full screen, is that we saw a huge net flow earlier this morning of around 6,400 Bitcoin going onto exchanges. Immediately after that, we saw the price drop. I gave you a heads up about this on Twitter, so hopefully you were able to take advantage of it. Now we are starting to see net flows go back into the negative, meaning that as the price has dropped to about 36.5, 37K, where we are right now, basically you're starting to see people send Bitcoin off exchanges again. So I expect over the next few hours another dip down below, and we start to see more Bitcoin leaving exchanges, and then likely the price continues rising or going sideways anywhere between 36 to 39,000. That's what I'm expecting for the remainder of the day. I don't think we're going to see any other big drops today unless we see a massive spike of inflow. You can see if we go just to the outflow chart on a block level, you've been having pretty high outflows since that. So since we had these big inflows earlier today, we are now seeing that we're having big outflows since that entire time. So it was around 6 a.m. this morning. So somewhere around here, outflows have just been spiking up. If we look at inflows by themselves, you'll see the large inflows happened here. On a block level, you still have inflows coming in, but that's why you look at net flow and you see that net flow is actually down. So even though you have Bitcoin coming on exchanges, right now more is leaving. So keep it in mind. It explains why we're seeing the price movement that we are. It correlates exactly with the price going up to around 38,000 and then dipping back down. That's why I tried to give you a heads up before that happened. And if you saw that tweet, you might have been able to take advantage of it or know what was coming. All right. That is pretty much it for the main analysis. All right, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at the balances on Glassnode. So the first thing I want to show you is addresses with a balance of 0.1 Bitcoin. You'll see that that has seen a massive dip. That means that a lot of people took some profits or sold when the price went up to around 38K. You still have a lot of fear in the market. That's expected. These are people that only have 0.1 Bitcoin. If you look at 0.01 Bitcoin, you see something very similar. You see it dipped, not as much. If we go to people with 1K or more Bitcoin, you'll see that also dipped, but not a ton. It dipped a little bit. Now we look at people with 10K or more Bitcoin, or with 10 or more Bitcoin, sorry. 10 or more Bitcoin previously was 1 or more Bitcoin. So this was 1 or more Bitcoin that slightly dipped. 10 or more Bitcoin has also slightly dipped in the same way. Now we look at people that have 1,000 or more Bitcoin, and that has seen a spike up. So basically what has happened is people with low amounts of Bitcoin have sold, probably de-risked, while you have people that have 1,000 or more Bitcoin, these are very wealthy people, have been buying. They've been buying a lot. So usually these are the people that know something is up. The last time we saw the number spike to this level, it was followed by another few $1,000 spike in price. The price went from 37K up to 39K the last time we saw a spike like this, with people with over 1,000 Bitcoin increasing their holdings. So keep that in mind. I think it's very possible that this keeps moving sideways and takes us right back up to 39,000. All right, and we'll go back very quickly to the 4-hour and just do a quick review of where I think we're going to be trading, okay? So I think we're going to be trading anywhere between around 39,000 down to 34,300 as a bottom. I expect to keep seeing higher or lower highs and higher lows for some time. And we possibly have our next move at around January the 20th. Now, the big thing that's really going to turn this around is if you see a huge price increase come in that takes us above 42K. Once we are breaking 42K, then this downtrend has been reversed. I would expect a drop back to around 37 to set in a top here on top of this trend, and then another bounce. So something like this is what I would expect longer term if we were to break out. If we were to break down, I've already shown you the regression lines, and you know that around 27K is where I'm looking to buy. Anywhere between 27 and 28.5 is where I'm going to be looking to buy on the downside scenario, and I'm always prepared for the upside scenario. I mean, who's not prepared for that? That's pretty much it. We kept it at around 17 minutes today. The reason that I marked this info urgent is because of the key fact that we are still in this continuation pattern, and we need to know that our downside target seems to be around 27K. So that is really the urgent info that you need to be aware of. The main thing to know now is that seeing the price movement down there is completely feasible, and part of that reason is with El Salvador doing what it's doing, the FUD has not yet started. The FUD could come back. Now, if the FUD comes back, you might have central banks, the IMF, and other people talking bearish about why this is bad for El Salvador, why it's bad for the world, when in reality, all they're saying is it's bad for us because we want to keep printing money, we want to have all the power, and we do not want other countries to start taking that power away by offering their people something other than the US dollar. Keep it in mind, be ready for FUD, be ready for downside, be ready for upside. You have a pretty decent range of what to look at. 42 or above means that we are breaking this continuation pattern and starting an uptrend. 27 or anywhere below 30 means that 27 may be a good buy zone for a reversal to come back to where we are now and keep going sideways. That's what I'm looking at. This takes us for about another week or so, but I'll have another update for you on Bitcoin either sometime this weekend or early next week, so keep a shot on that. Tomorrow, we're going to have a video dedicated to eGold, so make sure you're around for that. The day after that, we'll likely do Ethereum or Cardano. So I'll see you guys very soon, all right? Hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, leave me some comments, follow me on Twitter. I will talk to you soon. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Peace.